Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to talk you through a really simple 3-step routine that you can start to incorporate if you're struggling with something that we call the anterior pelvic tilt. So anterior pelvic tilt is probably best understood looking at someone sideways on, and when the pelvis gets tilted forwards, what we get is excessive sort of movement through the abdominals here coming forwards. Quite a lot of overextension through the lower back, which can sometimes put stress into that lower back and that lumbar spine area. And the reason why this happens is that typically you find that the hip flexors at the top of the thigh that lead into the lower back get particularly tight. So if you're sat at a desk for prolonged periods of time, or if you're in the car driving lots of miles, the muscles through the hips, and specifically a muscle that we call the psoas, that connects in from the inside of your thigh and then swings around into your lower back and connects into your lumbar spine, will get quite short. And when that muscle gets quite short, it's going to pull the pelvis and tilt the pelvis, and that is then going to put a lot of stress into that lower back area, and again that starts to create what we call the anterior pelvic tilt. So the 3 steps that we're going to look at, helping you to realign the pelvis, regain the control through the torso, but also look at strengthening the muscles on the back of the hips that we call the glutes, starts with a stretch first of all. So we want to try and stretch out that psoas muscle or the hips to start off with. I quite like to use a cushion or a pad on the floor just to protect your knees, take some pressure off. So think about bringing yourself up into a half kneeling position, okay? Make sure you set your stance quite wide as well so that you're not wobbling and struggling for stability. If you need something for stability, a foam roller or something by your side that you can just place your hand on for support is quite helpful. But the area that we're trying to stretch out is that psoas muscle, okay? So remember that it starts from here, swings round through the pelvis into the lower back. So in that half kneeling position, you might already feel a bit of a stretch, but the goal is that we've got to try and get the hips, draw the hips under into what we call a pelvic tilt. So trying to drive the hips under and create the stretch through the top of the hips here. So this is the area that we should be feeling it. But we also then want to try and open the hips up as well. So taking your arm up into the air and starting to reach and rotate through the torso. So reaching up and then rotating slightly is really going to start to open up through that psoas area, through the top of the hips, and help you to release the tightness through that muscle. Now the goal here is that you probably want to hold it for around 45 to 60 seconds. Let your breathing just relax into it so that you get the real benefits of the stretch. Obviously complete both sides as well. The second step in today's process is that we know that when we're in that anterior pelvic tilt and when we're extended into this position, if the hip flexors are tight, the muscles on the back, which are called the glutes, are going to get quite weak and underactive. So now we've got to try and fire those muscles up and get the message going from the brain to the buttocks to tell them to fire up and regain their strength again. So we call this one a shoulder bridge. You start off by laying onto your back first of all, and you're going to have your knees bent and you're going to have your feet driving down into the floor. So the first thing that I want you to work on is gently just trying to tuck the hips under so that your lower back just gently pushes down into the floor, and you should feel the abdominals just tighten up a little bit. From here, drive your feet down into the floor, start to pull the hips up towards the ceiling, and actively try and squeeze your buttocks at the top of the movement. Just watch that you don't try and extend and go too high, because that will just put more stress into your lower back. Okay, so feet set about shoulder width apart, gently tuck under through the hips to push that lower back down into the floor, and then start to push the hips up into your bridge. Squeeze the buttocks at the top. You're going to hold it for 5 seconds, and then you're going to slowly control yourself back down. So for your shoulder bridge, we really need you to be doing probably between 15 to 20 repetitions at a very slow, controlled tempo, really thinking about the idea of squeezing the buttocks at the top, making sure that they're starting to work. And the final step in today's routine is looking to try and re-engage and strengthen the abdominals, because again, in that anterior pelvic tilt, when we're in hyperextension through the lower back, we get a lot of tightness through that lower back area, which tends to mean the muscles on the front, the abdominals, are going to be stretched out and they become quite weak. So again, we've got to try and strengthen those muscles and teach them to do their job of trying to stabilise the pelvis and the spine. So if you go lay onto your back again, this time what we're going to do is start off by gently tucking under into that pelvic tilt. So again, drawing down into the floor. Think about pulling your belly button down into the floor to create some tension through the abdominals. We're going to draw both knees up to 90 degrees. So this is our start position. And then from here, what I want you to work on is one leg at a time, slowly trying to tap your heel to the floor whilst keeping that lower back in contact with the floor all the way through. So this is actually quite a stressful movement. If you do it slow and steady, as you extend the leg away from the body, you're going to feel that lower back try to lift up. You've got to use your abdominals here to gently push in, keep the stability, control back up. You're going to repeat 5 on the right hand side, 5 on the left, and then take a little recovery. But you're also going to try and repeat 3 lots of 5 on each side as well. So overall, that's 15 repetitions on the right and on the left, but having a little bit of recovery in between because it is quite stressful on the abdominals. And if they're weak, you need to slowly start to train them up to rebuild their strength. So again, the 3 steps: hip flexor stretch first of all, going into what we call the shoulder bridge or the glute bridge afterwards, and then finishing off with what we call supine leg lowering, really slow, steady tempo. Hold the stretch for about 60 seconds, do 15 to 20 repetitions on your shoulder bridge, and do 3 lots of 5 leg lowering on each side.